everyone. Welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. My name is David McLeod. I am your Life Mastery coach and author of the book, A Life to Die For. Today, we are having episode number 169, Find Your Voice. Now, if you were a child of the 50s or 60s, as many of the people who watch my show tend to be, there's a good chance you were told on multiple occasions that children should be seen and not heard. That was a common phrase in my family, I can tell you that. And I heard it frequently. And I remember when I heard it, I felt a combination of fear and anger every time. You know, something about it just didn't feel right, like somehow I was less important or whatever. So maybe your memories include being told to be quiet or not to ask too many questions, or that maybe some of your questions were actually stupid. There are plenty of us who were given the message that mommy and daddy always know what's best and that we aren't really in a position to make any choices for ourselves or even to say what we want. It's kind of the way it went for a lot of people. Wouldn't you agree? So the net result of experiences like these is that many of us became afraid to speak up, worried about what others might think or say. Truth is, many of us gave up, and as a result, we lost our voice. So for this episode of Life Mastery TV, I've invited back a friend who's become something of a regular on this show, in as much as anyone is a regular. And her own personal journey has led her to overcome some of the things I've just described here, so that she could find her voice. And in the process of doing that, she's discovered a bunch of methods and tools and tips and tricks to help people become more outspoken, to learn to find their voice. She has become the master of voice and sound energy, a founder of Gift of Healing TV, and a master teacher of Reiki and vocal Reiki. So please join me in welcoming my good friend, Sara Jane, back to our show. Come on, Sara. Want to see your face again.
I got it. I'm there. I think. Yes. Hello, David.
So great to have you back on the show again. I think you must have been on this show like 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 times by now. And I know I've been on your show multiple times. We seem to have a really nice interaction. So it's great to have you here again.
Oh, thank you. We initially met, didn't we, at the Messenger Speaker Summits.
Yeah, that was like back in 2011, I think.
I think it's 2012 and 13. Yes, yeah. So
right. Beautiful. It's amazing how these collaborations and partnerships develop over time, and friendships, of course, as well. So I'm wondering, Sara, you know, I alluded a little bit to the story of you having gone through some stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about why finding your voice has been so important to you and why you now want to help other people do the same?
I think I lost my voice because of feeling very unwanted, unloved, not good enough, unworthy, another term, whatever term you want to come up with, due to circumstances. Not, well, yes, those words, you know, sort of children should be seen and not heard. Absolutely, I can hear those ringing in my ears. But it was circumstances. There was no fault. It was just how it was. Hospitalization for 3 months as a tiny baby, not seeing my parents for more than an hour once a week. And that feels like desertion.
Of course.
It really does. And of course, when you're that insecure, and then all you want to do is be a people pleaser. Well, correction, that's what I wanted to. We all react differently to circumstances. And that's how I reacted, is how can I please people?
I'm just curious, how old were you at the time that this took place?
I spent my first birthday in hospital. So you can't explain to a child that mummy and daddy still loves them, that they wish they could be with them, but they can't. Because for me, children see things in black and white. You either do it or you don't. Period. there is no middle ground. There is no circumstances outside of people's control. Children don't understand that. Their parents are there to look after them, to support them, to care for them. And they do that to the best of their ability with the knowledge they have in the majority of circumstances.
Yes, I agree.
And so it was, yes, my insecurities led me to be afraid to say anything much.
Right.
Especially when you get told, oh, stop asking so many questions, or don't be so stupid, or whatever. You just don't
Right.
need
Yeah, that's right. Well, you know, and the thing is, so you were at an age that was almost pre-verbal. It was before the time when your ego started to develop. So you were probably at that stage, that early stage of development, where most of what you were experiencing were feelings that were going through your body, and you were probably having this feeling of, man, I feel lonely, or I don't know if you could even put words on it, but that's kind of the energy that was probably going through you. Or so the idea of believing that mommy and daddy didn't love you, or that you had somehow been deserted, probably didn't come into your conscious awareness until you were older than that. So what else happened over the course of those years that led you to start believing that you needed to be quiet?
I think you got to realize that when I eventually got out of hospital, my parents had moved, so I went home to unfamiliar surroundings.
Oh boy.
My mother was pregnant with my sister Gillian. Gillian was born and died 9 weeks later.
Oh my God.
Another rejection from a child, because I was only 18 months old when Gillian died.
Oh boy.
My mother was pregnant again. Gillian was born on the 1st of August. The following year, on the 12th of August, my sister Katie was born. Because Gillian had been classed as a cot death, every little whimper, my parents went running.
Of course.
Of course they did. As I said, everything in my life was about circumstances. It was not about rejection. The problem was, that's how it felt.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
And then I had a nickname, and my nickname was Pickle Puss.
Oh boy.
As a child, well, that's quite cute. But the problem is that there is also this term picklish, in respect of slightly naughty, but not naughty.
Right.
And although I don't remember it, I can really almost hear myself being told off. Oh, that was picklish. But the initial time that was done was laughter, because parents, and please, I'm not knocking parents, because when children do things for the first time, it can be very funny. The problem is they just want to keep you safe.
Mm-hmm.
And actually it stops being funny. But when you're already that insecure, and they turn around and they laugh and say, oh, that's really picklish. You don't understand, especially as it was sort of like my nickname. And then it was, don't be such a pickle. And I started getting told off for being
mixed messages.
For being myself.
Right.
Oh,
right.
absolutely. And how many times do adults do this to children without being aware that that's what they're doing?
Yeah.
So my heart goes out to parents, and I've never been a parent. I've left that to my two sisters. But so I get it. Right. I really do understand, because I do understand from that perspective of so I was told not to be me. I felt rejected. Why bother to say anything? Nobody's listening.
Right. Well, okay. And now I just want to be clear about something, and I've noticed this myself in my own life. I was told not to be me. Well, that's not strictly true. I don't think anybody ever said to you, don't be you. But what they did say was, don't do this. Don't ask too many questions. things that were natural for you to do, they were trying to shut down because for some reason it disturbed them or it upset them or it made them uncomfortable or whatever the truth might be. That's true in every child's life. I'm imagining, well, some children have it a lot worse than you and I ever did, that's for sure. We're not here to compare things. We're just here simply saying that every child goes through these kinds of experiences, and as a result of the experiences, formulates a message in his or her mind that says, oh, I'm not supposed to be who I am. Oh, I'm not supposed to speak up if I want to be loved. Those are, there's always that little phrase at the end. If I want to be loved, then I have to blah, 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 whatever the story is. So we all have those stories, and yours is pretty interesting. I like how you mentioned that there was really no fault here, that it was just circumstances. And that's really important because it tells us that you don't have to actually be traumatized by someone in order to have messages or to feel the pain that leads to messages in your own mind. The trauma doesn't have to be there, but it can still be just as painful. That's the thing that we're trying to say here. And it's very, very important for people to understand.
But I also think that when you think that, like, okay, I was scalded by a boiling milk coffee that went over my face, stuck to my skin. Yes. And who is to say what is trauma to a child?
Right.
One word. If you've got an insecure child anyway, one word can be traumatic.
Yeah.
And so and because of obviously now what I do, my own journey and what I help people with, it is very much about staying out of judgment of what was traumatic to that child.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think what I was trying to say that, I guess my use of the word trauma in my description is someone else inflicting deliberate pain on you. That's kind of what I was getting at. But you're absolutely right. Trauma can happen from a variety of circumstances. It doesn't have to be someone physically, attacking you or hurting you or anything like that. It could be a completely 100% accidental thing, still just as painful, just as traumatic for you personally. Yes, thank you for that correction.
But it's also about, when you think about so many of our service people, post-traumatic stress, it's not necessarily something that they've experienced happening to them so much as all the experiences of things they've witnessed.
Sure. Yep.
So trauma is way, way, way more wide than I think a lot of people give it credit for.
If credit is the right word. Yeah, I understand. You're absolutely right. And I'm glad we cleared that up. It's very, very important. So here you are, 4 or 5, maybe 6 years old now, and established in your belief system that maybe you're not worthy, that you don't deserve love, or other stories that you made up in your head. So how did that eventually lead you to discovering your voice? And then once you discovered your voice, finding the mechanisms and the methods and the support systems to help other people find their voice?
I think I was 37.
Well, that's often the case, isn't it?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I sometimes have to try and think back. Anyway, dentist broke my jaw extracting a wisdom tooth, and I didn't know it was broken for a week. I think what we've all face and neck stuff and throat stuff, sort of. But again,
yeah.
Throat, voice. I have the scars on my neck from that, from the scalding, but it's also thinking, actually, it was the jaw that was broken. And that's still about that area.
Sure.
And I didn't understand at the time, but of course, I didn't know the jaw was broken for a week. It was then a 2-odd-hour operation to try and sort it out. And 6 months of pain and sleepless nights. You're so exhausted that I was working full time, running a house, studying accounting, and trying to be a people pleaser.
Busy life.
And it's just like, excuse me, gratefully it was a house that didn't have children in it, just had
Oh,
five cats in it, and a husband. Um, and something had to give. I couldn't do it all
right.
because I hadn't got the energy because I was so tired. And so eventually the marriage went, the people pleasing went, and eventually, yeah, although I finished the level 2 of the accounting course, I never went on and did any more of it. It was just like, no. But that was my wake up call.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And it was just suddenly, why am I in a marriage I know I shouldn't be in? No disrespect to my ex-husband, that there is, I'm not putting any fault anywhere. I don't put fault anywhere. It takes two to tango. So it's just, I knew I shouldn't be there. So eventually I had the courage to say, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
That hurt him. But when you hear the words, but I have everything I ever wanted, and that includes you. So why do you ignore me?
Right.
So
Right.
if I were behaving, I really didn't think you wanted to be in the marriage either. Anyway, so that was beside the point. That was then I got made redundant.
Right.
So, and ended up by moving, being able to buy my own little house. That all happened over a period of time. It wasn't like click, everything happened all in once. But it's just having that courage to take yourself out of a very uncomfortable comfort zone.
Right. And that's an interesting point that you make. And the moment you realize that you have the strength to do that, to follow through on something that you just, whether it was a momentary decision or whether it was something that had been building for a time period, the moment you make the decision, you realize that you have a lot more power than you thought you did. And so you become more aware of, I actually am important. So that was probably a big transition at that point for you.
I think it was just realizing that it was for me to take control of my life.
Right.
And I was the one that made the decision to leave the marriage. And I took that step. But then the universe, now it would be very, very easy to look at it and say, but then you were getting made redundant. Yes, but I actually saw that as a gift. I really did see it as a gift. And I don't know why, because I wasn't in this place of what I do now. But it was just like, oh, the company that's taken us over, we can either move down to Bournemouth, which is where I live, or I can just take redundancy, stay stuck in Northampton. I've got a sister who lives in Bournemouth. My parents live down in Devon. It's so much easier. Or my parents, as they were at the time. My dad's passed since. But, it was actually, I didn't stay with the company. I did end up by taking redundancy. But I moved down here anyway.
Well, just for clarification, what do you mean by redundancy? Is that something that is that a British thing or?
Yeah, basically the company, I was working for an insurance company, and
Right.
the company got taken over by another company. And they said, okay, you can move down to Bournemouth and we will find you a job within our Bournemouth office, or we'll let you go. But it's called redundancy rather than being fired.
Got it. Yeah.
If you're fired in England, it's because you've done something wrong and you're not going to get anything. With the redundancy, you are paid an amount of money. And
Right. It's kind of like a layoff or something here in the US. Right. So I just like to, acknowledge the people who are on this live presentation. Any of you who have comments or questions or would like to share a little bit about your experience and maybe losing your voice and starting the process of finding it again, we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to just write your comments or questions in the chat, and we will get to them as soon as we can. So, Sara, yeah, you've had quite a journey for sure. And I know you and I have shared some of this before, and I don't know if we've gone into quite this level of detail on the show, but I'm glad that you shared this. And, I know for myself, when I was a kid, I heard a lot of the same things that you did. And my mom, if I had an idea, my mom would say things like, "Oh, don't be so ridiculous." That was her word. She didn't say stupid. She said ridiculous. That was her word. And I noticed that I sometimes say that now. "Oh, that's ridiculous. Don't be crazy. Don't be ridiculous." So in her own way, she was trying to get me to think and speak and behave according to her way of thinking. And I think that's pretty common for humans to do to each other. We all want each other to think alike and to be alike. And, I really want to like you, but when you have that thought, it doesn't jive with me. So, so we create and it's all ego mind stuff that's doing that. Because in the true scheme of who we really are, deep down in our soul, deep down in our essence, none of that matters. We all recognize that we're all amazing, beautiful, wonderful, fantastic, magnificent beings. And the rest of it is all just ego stuff that gets in the way.
I think with children, they just want to learn. They really do want the attention of their parents, and some children really enjoy being with adults.
Yeah.
They really do. And other children, they'd rather be with other children. And I think in spite of everything, I was one of those people who was very happy to be around adults. And right. You can learn, and I suppose, and then it becomes learned behaviors because you're learning what you are witnessing.
Correct.
You are not necessarily what you are hearing, but what you are witnessing. And there's that saying, "Do as I say, not as I do."
Oh, yeah, I got that one. Yeah, my mom would say that quite a bit. So I noticed Jeffrey made a comment here about losing his voice because he didn't have the confidence in what he had to say. So it led to a stuttering problem that lasted through his 20s and beyond until he figured out how to cure it himself. Yeah, Jeffrey, I completely resonate with that. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Confidence is a big thing. And, confidence, if we don't have the confidence to speak up, if we're not encouraged by the people in our family to continue growing and developing our awareness and our confidence and so forth, then we may kind of tend to hold ourselves back. And when we hold ourselves back, everything gets held back, including our voice. So if you don't have confidence in the ideas that come to mind or in sharing them with other people, then clearly you're going to remain quiet about it, or as you experience, maybe have difficulty getting the words out. And well, I honor you for going through that journey and finding a way to cure yourself. So good for you, and thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I think, thank you for sharing. Thank you for having the courage to share. And I think it is about the courage thing, isn't it? But if your confidence has been knocked, and this is what I help people with, is going back, reconnecting with the inner child and that time of hurt, pain, and trauma. And I was only working with somebody this week, and some comments were made, and I sort of said, I passed a comment back about, well, actually, everything I'm hearing here is about unworthiness. And that made them think. And I've obviously, no names, no pack drill, even if people don't know who this person is, it doesn't matter. But then it came down to the fact that that this person is female, and the father had wanted her to be a boy.
Yeah. So not good enough as she was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it can be it could be something, and that's not simple. It's very easy to say it could be something as simple as that, but it could be anything. Somebody else I remember working with, and I really couldn't tell you who it was, but they were out with their best friend playing as a child. And then their sibling came along. And then the best friend and the sibling went off, leaving them on their own.
Yes. Yeah.
And they remembered feeling really hurt.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is where I say it's who is to say what is traumatic to a child? So memories come up when we are supported with opening that up. And they may hurt, but I'm sure I've shared it before. There's a lovely saying by Alice Little, and I'm going to just paraphrase it. When we were a traumatized child, we were desperate for somebody to come and save us. What we didn't understand was that somebody would be ourselves as an adult.
Right. Beautiful. Yeah. Very good.
We are the only person who can help to heal that inner child so that we can find our voice.
Right. That's beautiful. Yeah. I just wanted to note that Jeffrey says, I now work with stutterers all over the world to teach them how not to stutter. Inner child work is very important, as is cognitive therapy. Isn't that amazing? How whatever experience we have as a child usually leads to something that we're called to do to bring support and help and love to other people. I know for me, I went through a very long period of time where I was slowly disowning myself and becoming more and more resentful and angry about it over the years. And it wasn't until I was in my 40s that I realized that I'd been doing that. Now I can trace it all back to one very, very simple phrase that my mom said to me when I was 3 years old. And that was, I know you better than you know yourself. Not a big deal, not earth-shatteringly damaging or anything, but it had an impact on me that lasted for the next 40 years. Now, who would have guessed that? So now my job, now that I have understood that I had kind of disowned myself and that I was giving up the truth of who I am, I realized how important that is, and I want everybody else to know it. So you see, this is how we all tend to. There's a writer I remember reading about. O'Hanlon is his last name. I can't remember his first name, but he wrote a book, Follow Your Wound. And that's essentially what we're talking about here. Whatever the biggest wound that you have is what you're going to end up somehow bringing forward in the world to support other people. If you don't heal it, then you're going to use that same wound to damage other people. But if you learn to heal it, then you can actually bring healing into the world. It's an amazing process, and I think he's absolutely right.
Even if you don't damage other people, it's the damage you're doing to yourself.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, it really is. And so many of us work with, because of the healing journey we have been on. I found the courage to say, my marriage is over. And then it was just like, okay, fine. I thought, actually, I could do with finding out why. Why have I behaved? Why have I reacted in the way I have to what happened? Because I was fully aware of the scolding and the hospitalization, because the story had been told me. Not that I remember it, but because I'd been told about it. And I've always known it. So I have no idea what age I was told about it, but I've always known. But obviously, a cellular memory level, right. I definitely had always known from the instant it occurred. But it was just like, okay. And so I actually asked to go and see a psychotherapist because I wanted to understand. And so the cognitive therapies, I would absolutely say, can help the adult. And that's essential. For me, that is essential, that once the adult can get an element of understanding. So I will say, there is no one to blame. It was an accident, and then it was all circumstances around that.
Mm-hmm.
So now the adult has got an understanding. We still don't have to like what happened, but we've got an understanding. When the adult has an understanding, that is when the adult is ready to go back and help the child. Not that you can explain to a child, you can't, but the energy of your love, your understanding, your caring, that energy that you hold, that understanding you hold, is what can help the child to realize they're loved, to realize that somebody does care.
Right.
There is somebody who is willing to listen.
Right. Yeah.
And as a child heals, that energy comes up through your ages to the you of today.
Right. So just to be clear, I want to make sure that people understood you were talking about my inner child, not some arbitrary child out there. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. I've done a lot of personal growth, inner child work. It's been very, very, very empowering because for much of my life, I mean, in my adult life, I should say, I can't remember a whole lot of my childhood before about age 9. There's a few little incidents that I can remember, but most of it is just blank. Now, I don't know if that's normal or common. I shouldn't say normal. It's normal for me, but it might not be common, what I'm saying. Because I hear my brother and my sister, they talk about stuff that happened in their childhood. And when they say it, I say, oh yeah, I remember that now. But I can't just bring up the memory on my own. So somehow I am shutting stuff out because at the time, it was painful for whatever reason. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that we all have to deal with our own past in whatever way works for us. So we find ways of compartmentalizing things that were painful and moving ourselves forward in time and just living our lives. But sooner or later, as you've mentioned, Sara, sooner or later, you're going to have to deal with it. Sooner or later, you're going to have to deal with it. And if you don't deal with it, then you're going to have a miserable life. There is just no point in suffering eternally when all you need to do is start taking responsibility for yourself, for your health, for your mental health, and recognizing that because you were born, you are automatically worthy. You are worthy of love. You are worthy to take your place in the world. You are worthy to be seen. You are worthy to be heard. And it doesn't matter what your parents might have said to you. This is the truth. And what you can do now is you can learn from those things and say, okay, now that I know, I'm going to make sure I don't repeat the cycle in the next round. That's what you can do. And then, as Sara pointed out, you can also find a way to do the inner work and heal those old wounds. And it's almost as if you're taking your own little boy or your little girl in your arms, in your lap, and just feeling that energy and saying, yeah, I know the pain you went through. I really understand it. And I'm sorry you had to go through it. I love you, period. You didn't do anything wrong. Those are the kinds of messages that we can give our inner child if we choose.
Oh, and I totally get the memories thing. I listen to my sisters and I think, I don't even get that. Oh, yes, I remember that now. It's just like, I don't remember. And a friend of mine, not so long ago, sort of said something about, memories from childhood. And I said, why would I remember? I was such an unhappy child. Why would I want to remember an unhappy childhood? And,
Yeah.
and I came from a very loving family, but I never felt a part of it.
Right.
And I think that's that it's understanding that, accepting that that was my choice, that was my reaction to what happened. And we make our own choices. You sort of talk about things that happen, and for me, we still do it today. I haven't got time to deal with that, frustrating, whatever, hurt, whatever that it might be. I haven't got time to deal with that. And I see our solar plexus as being like a well, that we chuck everything down that we haven't dealt with. Well, it's gonna come out at some stage. And this is where the word dis-ease comes from.
Right.
Because eventually it will come back and bite us.
Right.
Because your body is going to be saying to you, come on, there's something it's time for you to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
But it can't tell you what it is. It is up to you to sort it out.
That's really a good point. Yeah. The body doesn't speak to us in words. It speaks to us in feelings, emotions, and sensations. That's the way it talks. The words that we have mostly come from up here. So we have to understand that the words can be helpful. They can be little pointers, if you like. They're like little flags on the road that tell us that we're moving in the right direction, but they don't necessarily speak the truth. But feelings and sensations, that's just energy. How can it be anything but true?
Yeah, it's listening. I think you're starting to listen to yourself.
Right.
When you start to listen to yourself, then you can start vocalizing. And it's then having the courage. Are you a yes person? Do you always say yes to everybody? Oh yeah, I was there. But I have learned to say no.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, can it cause ructions.
Sure. Yeah.
And then it's going into that thing, but somebody might say, oh, but if you say no to somebody, isn't that being selfish? Okay, I would like to argue that one. Thank you very much indeed. Somebody has asked you to do something and it really does not resonate with you. It feels wrong. We can go fairly strong. Somebody's asked you to murder somebody, or steal something or something. It just does not feel right for you. And you say no. You do not have to give a reason. You say no. And then all you get back is, but that's really selfish of you. Who is the selfish one?
Mm-hmm.
Not the person who has said no, but the person who is pushing you to do something that goes against the grain for you.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And that's part of finding your voice, isn't it? Learning to say no. It doesn't mean you have to say no all the time. But what it does mean is you learn to check in with yourself and say, is this something that feels in alignment with who I am and how I choose to show up in the world? If the answer is yes, then you can go ahead and say, yeah, I'm willing to do that. But if the answer is no, you can say, that doesn't quite feel right for me. I think I'm going to pass. You notice how I didn't actually say no? And if somebody pushes me, I will eventually get stronger with my no. But you can say it in a gentle, loving way, and you can say, thank you for the invitation. That just doesn't feel right for me. I think I'm going to pass. You don't have to be obnoxious about it.
No. And I think it's also realizing that when you say yes, when you mean no, you're holding two people back.
That's right.
Yourself and the other individual.
Right.
Because if it's something they want very badly, then they hopefully will go and sort it for themselves. Mm-hmm. We are not here to be a doing. We are here to be a being.
That's right. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. Yeah. I like how you said that too. When I say yes, when I really mean no, I'm actually holding two people up, because I'm not being true to myself when I say yes in order to be a people pleaser. And the other person is probably going to detect that there's something there anyway, because we're big giant radar systems, you know. We can tell when the other person is being disingenuous. We can tell. And that's part of the natural aspect of empathy that we all seem to have. So there's no reason to say yes when you mean no, because the other person's going to tell anyway. So why not just be honest? You might as well be honest. People will actually appreciate you more in the long run too, because if they know that you're willing to say no when you really mean no, then they're more likely to trust you when you say yes. Really important for people to understand that.
Yeah.
So what we're really talking about here is part of finding your voice is being willing to articulate your boundaries. And as a being, you have the right to whatever boundaries you choose. You know, as long as they don't violate someone else's boundaries. That's it.
It is just so important to be true to yourself. Whatever that truth is. Now, obviously, it is very important not to physically hurt others. And if you can avoid emotionally hurting others, that is also good. But if you've got to give a no because it is genuinely not right for you, then that other person shouldn't be hurt by that.
Right.
But when you've been a people pleaser and you've always said yes, it's very difficult initially to say no, and for the people around you to think, oh, he said no. And I had it with my mother. I said a flat outright no to my mother over something that did cause a few ructions. But what has resulted from that is the fact that the rest of the family, including my mother, have realized that I've given them permission to say no.
Right. That's another really, really good point. Yep. I like that. If I'm willing to say no to you, then I'm basically telling you, without actually using these words, you can say no to me too.
Yeah.
Very important.
Finding our own voice and being true to ourselves can give other people permission to do exactly the same. But while we continue, and how many times do you find yourself saying yes and thinking, oh, why did I say that? So then we have to get ourselves into okay, I've been asked a question. I'm not sure what I'm feeling about this. Can you give me a couple of hours? Can you give me a half a day? I'll be back to you by the end of the day. Whatever. Give yourself a chance to think about it. There may be aspects that feel right and others that don't. It might be a flat outright no, but better to go back with an honest answer than to say, yeah, that's fine, I'll do that, and then not do it at all.
Right.
You don't give people a chance to sort something else out.
Right.
So actually, it is really unkind to say yes when you mean no.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I want to ask the people who are watching here live, if you have an experience with this, being challenged about saying no to somebody who asks a favor or whatever. How do you find it trying to establish your own boundaries and have those boundaries honored by other people? If you're challenged with that, I'd love to hear from you if you'd like to put something in the chat there. Yeah, this notion of boundaries, I think, is a really important one, and it definitely is related to this whole thing that we're talking about here. But yes and no are two words that we all understand, and they do kind of express the idea that, hey, I may want to do something, I may not. And by the way, this is another important thing to remember. I may be a no right now in this moment, but if you ask me tomorrow, maybe something different will happen. Maybe I'll be a yes tomorrow, but right now, this is my truth. And I think you said something else too that, that I think is important. If you take some space and just move aside and just kind of check in with yourself and see how you feel about it. And as you say, there may be some aspects that feel good and some aspects that don't feel so good. You can always come back and say, I'm not resonating entirely with your request, but I am willing to do this over here. So you're basically negotiating now.
Yeah.
And negotiation is an absolutely perfect thing to do with anybody. But remember, negotiation requires speaking up, requires finding your voice. So don't be afraid because you are worried that somebody else might have a negative opinion of you. Their opinion is irrelevant. It really is. What matters is how you feel about yourself. And if you feel positively, if you feel lovingly, if you feel supportively about yourself, the other people will respect you regardless of your opinion, and whether you say yes or no.
And do you know what? It doesn't matter if they don't respect you.
Yeah.
That's their stuff.
Yeah.
That is absolutely their stuff. The most important is not about other people loving us. It is about us loving ourselves.
Absolutely. Yep.
And the words that we use to us as children of, sort of, oh, be quiet, sort of, and all the rest of it, that doesn't help us to love ourselves because we've taken on board what has been said to us in a very black and white way. Very black and white way. It's, I'm not good enough like that. So obviously there's no way I should be loving myself. No, nobody tells us it is okay to love ourselves. And if you've been brought up, certainly in the Catholic religion, you're definitely not taught to love yourself in that. I can't speak for other religions because I was raised a Catholic, but it's not a life is about other people, but it has to start with yourself. And when you can love yourself, trust yourself, believe in yourself, honor yourself, respect yourself, all these lovely, lovely words that so many of us have had missing from our lives for ourselves. When we have all of that for ourselves, what it helps us to do is truly have it for others and accept it from others. We don't need it from others. The only person we require it from is ourself. It's lovely to have it from others, but you can't truly understand what comes from others until you have that for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And it's something that I think we tend to forget, many of us. Self-love is the beginning of love, really. And I think, maybe I'm a little confused here, but didn't Jesus actually say, love your neighbor as yourself?
Yeah.
Meaning that you cannot love your neighbor really until you love yourself.
Yeah.
It was a very important teaching, and one that I think, people who are interested in somehow personal gain somehow say, well, that's all about the ego. It's all about, it's selfishness is what it is. And that's completely not true. Self-love is the least selfish thing you can do. And it is the most beneficial thing you can do for the world that you live in.
Yeah.
So, don't let anybody tell you that self-love is in any way a selfish thing. And self-love means being able to speak up when something needs to be said and speaking your truth from your heart, regardless of what anybody else might think about it. That's the important thing. Don't let other people's opinions slow you down.
I think it's the understanding of the self-love, because there are those people that put out aspects that could be perceived as self-love that actually aren't. It's insecurity.
Right.
Self-love has nothing to do with pouncing around.
Right. We're not talking about narcissism here. You know, thank you, Thomas, for being here. We'll see you some other time, and have a great day. Thank you for letting us know. Yeah, it's the idea of pouncing around, as you say, is I mean, that's a British statement, I guess. I know what you mean when you talk about it. It's like, hey, look at me, I'm so important. I need you to all just kind of resonate and realize how important I am. No, that's not what self-love is. That is self-aggrandizement, and self-aggrandizement is purely a function of the ego. So, people who are truly loving of themselves don't have any need to be seen. They don't have any need to be heard. But they recognize that when it's time to speak, they can speak, and they will speak and share what they know without concern for what other people might think. That's what I think self-love is all about.
I think it's lovely because you and I do the programs that we do. And I'm sure the same goes with you. We are not looking for fame and fortune. What we are looking
If I was looking for fame and fortune, I'm a dreadful failure.
But what we are looking to do is share our knowledge, our gifts,
Yeah,
and we are coming from that place of love.
exactly.
We have helped ourselves. Yet, don't get me wrong, we haven't done it all ourselves. The only person who can heal you is you. But there are many people out there who can help offer a tool that empowers your self-healing. I haven't done all this myself, but I have
You have done it all yourself. It's just that you did it yourself because you found a Sherpa or a guide or a guru or a teacher who said, hey, Sara, what about this? This might help you.
Yeah. So sort of learning Reiki, becoming aware of the sound energy, the vocal aspect of Reiki, become techniques such as metamorphic technique and craniosacral therapy and shiatsu and Indian head massage and reflexology. There are many, and Daoyin Tao, there's some lovely therapies out there. And a lot of them can be just relaxing and allowing the energies to be moved.
Yeah.
It isn't the cognitive, I said, for me, yes, I would say the cognitive to a degree is very important. It's coming to an understanding so that when the energy work starts, that you are in the right place. And I know I've had spoken to people, it's just like, I am not really ready to revisit that pain, which I find so sad, but it has to be when it's right for individuals. It's not for me to say, you've got to do this now, whatever. Because those people that have, okay, fine, yes, it's absolutely time for me to do something. And you can see the difference in them. Mm-hmm. It may be uncomfortable for a very short period of time. And then it's just like, I've acknowledged it and I can actually let it go because now I can understand.
Right. Yeah. Most people who say they don't want to revisit that pain really have no idea what they're saying no to.
Yeah.
They imagine this horrible traumatic experience is going to be relived completely. And I honestly believe that is an over exaggeration coming from the ego mind that is trying to say, hey, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. It's gonna hurt. Well, it might be uncomfortable. Absolutely, as this energy is moving through your body, because it's been stuck in this one place for such a long time. And so finding a way to get it to finally move so that it can be released. Oh my God. And yeah, there might be tears, there might be sobbing, there might be all kinds of other good stuff. well, I call it good stuff. I never used to, but I do call it good stuff now. That happens because your body is just working all this stuff out. And it's really quite an amazing, miraculous process to witness. And I'm often, as a facilitator, when I'm helping somebody work through something like this, I find myself in tears as well. Understanding the level of pain that the other person went through and watching this beautiful healing take place, so that by the time it's all over, they have this almost well, I haven't always seen a deep sigh of relief, but I have seen people just kind of stand up into this magnificent, shining, glowing version of themselves. It's just amazing and beautiful to watch. And when they get to that place, then I get them to anchor that feeling by making an affirmative statement of who you are now. And often it's something like, I am an amazing, beautiful, magnificent man or woman who loves everyone. Something like that. I mean, I don't know what they'll say, but that's an example of something that can come forth once that energy is out of the way. It's beautiful.
And it's helping people to find where the stuck bit started.
I like that, the stuck bit. Yeah.
Stuck bit started. Because,
I love the way you Brits talk. It's fun.
But I have no idea what I'm saying, and suddenly the words are coming out of my mouth, and it's just like, okay, fine, pouncing around, but hey ho, it fitted, sort of.
Right.
So, and it is about we can do it, and it's just watching people, and it's almost like a glow around them. And I don't see things like that, but it's just, you can just see the face light up, the shoulders are relaxed. As you said, they're more upright. It's a confidence in themselves. And all the insecurities, those bits we struggle with, are, for me, this is how I see it, are an aspect of our younger self who has still got some hurt and pain.
Mm-hmm.
And that insecurity shows up in ourselves. And it's then coming to a point where we think, okay, right, what's this trying to tell me? What do I need to go back to? Because I think, certainly with you and I, with the amount of work that we've done on ourselves, we are at a place that most of the time we can do it for ourselves.
Right.
Because we've been doing it for years.
Yes, it has been a journey for sure. Yeah.
But once you find that person that can help you to start the journey, whoever that may be, you may find that it isn't constantly going back. You get to a stage where I can, and it's not always necessarily going to be the same person. As I said, I've had lots of different sessions of different things, and they've all helped. Craniosacral has given me some of the biggest clearings, but that was me. But then I've done so much energy work with the metamorphic and the Reiki and the vocal Reiki, and that I can do for myself. Craniosacral, somebody else has to do for me.
Yeah,
it's find what works for you, and then learn what works for you.
Beautiful. So Sara, we have covered a lot of ground here. It's been almost an hour. We've been talking about all kinds of great stuff, and it's been absolutely fabulous as always. Now, you mentioned before I started the recording, you mentioned something about a workshop or something that you're doing on March 21st. I was wondering if you share a little bit about that and maybe drop the link into the chat so people can maybe sign up for that. Share a little bit what that's all about.
The workshop is something that's come to mind, and the workshop is called A Deeper Dive into Yourself. I say 6.5 hours. It's actually 6 hours, but we have a half-hour break And it's for a very limited number of people. I've never done it before, which is why there is a there is a charge. There is a nominal charge for it. And basically within this period, it's a very, very interactive workshop. And it is going to be helping people to find their voice, find their confidence in themselves, encouraging you to share your trauma, hurt, and pain, your story. Encouraging, and this is for everybody that's involved. There's maximum 5 people because I'm the 6th. Share how it made you feel. Share what happened, your wake-up call. So very much as I've done here today, I'm going to say today, it's tonight here in the UK. And then share your healing journey. Because we can all, and it's about everybody listening as well as sharing. There will be meditation, sound bath, and other things involved as well. But it is about everybody getting involved in their own story and listening and hearing other people.
Right.
Because I'm just getting the sense with this that as you dive into yourself and you feel heard and listened to, and you hear and listen and hear to other people, that there will be a growth. And the healing journey that each has experienced can also support everybody else with, oh, I hadn't thought about trying that. Maybe I should try that. And in respect to the feelings, it doesn't matter what our actual story is. I think people will find that in many cases, the feelings have been very similar.
Right. Okay, so this is Sunday, March 21st, a deeper dive into yourself, 11 a.m. Eastern time to 8 a.m. Pacific time. And it goes for, you said about 6 hours, starting from 11 a.m. And you're charging, you said what, $25 or something like that?
I'm not sure what the dollars is, £20. If it's $25, then that's what it is.
Fair enough. And so the link is there in the chat if you'd like to grab that and go check it out. And so, yeah, I will make sure that when we drop the recording for this, I will put a link on my website as well, so people can check it out there. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Final words before I close out?
Just have the confidence in yourself to use your own voice, because your life will change so much for the better. There will be those people who won't like it, but they're probably people who shouldn't be in your life anyway, sorry. Let's put it bluntly, shall we?
Yeah.
Be true to you, to your voice. And I know how much difference it has made in my life by doing that.
All right. Well, thank you again, Sara, for being here. It's always fun to have a conversation with you. We cover a lot of ground, and I really like that. And thank you all for watching this program here today, especially those of you who were live. Remember, excuse me, you can catch the recordings of this and every other episode on my website at lifemasterytv.com. That's life-mastery-tv.com. I really hope you enjoyed this presentation, the conversation here today. In a couple of hours, you're going to receive an email from the Learn It Live platform asking you to leave some feedback. And I'd sure appreciate it if you could, give us a review, let us know that you got something positive out of this. And if you could give us a 5-star or even a 4-star, that would be great. Meanwhile, I would like to remind you about practicing the life mastery mantra every single day. And just a reminder, it goes like this. I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. So until we meet again, my name is David McLeod, your Life Mastery Coach. I want to thank you once more for being here and wishing you love, light, and blessings until we meet again on just have a great life. Bye-bye now.